Hello and welcome to Mr. Fitzgerald's 4th grade science class. If you're watching this video, that means you missed class today and you need to be caught up on all the wonderful, amazing things that we learned today. Alright, today we're going to be learning about renewable and non-renewable resources. Now, when you think about renewable and non-renewable resources, I want you to think about the things that we take from the earth that we use every day. So, the way we power things, like our cars, our lights, when we use electricity, oil, the things we build things with, the very house around you, maybe the very classroom you work in, are all built from resources we take from the earth. The food you eat, these are all things we take from the earth. Now, we're going to watch a little video going a little bit more in depth on renewable and non-renewable resources, and maybe it will help you get a better idea before we start our activity in our lesson. All right.
You've probably noticed by now, in your years of being a human, that human beings need a lot of stuff to live. Food, water, shelter, YouTube, well, maybe not that last one. So where does all of this stuff come from? Why, it comes from our very own Earth. We live on a planet that has all of the stuff we need to survive. There's fresh water to drink, fruit on trees, and wood to build our houses. Convenient, right? We call this stuff resources. Because humans need so many of these resources to live, it's easier for us to form communities, like cities or neighborhoods, where these resources are plentiful, so we don't have to travel long distances to find them on our own. That's why you don't normally see big cities in the middle of deserts, where there's no water, or at the top of freezing mountains, where there's no food. Think about your own town and where it's located. If it's close to things like water and agriculture, that was probably no accident. Humans and other animals tend to thrive in places that are near the resources they need to survive. Of course, the stuff we need to live doesn't come ready to use right out of the earth. Although I would personally love it if there were, say...
So you have to think that even though we are maybe not be located near these things, we are still put in a general area where these things can be brought to us very easily because we rely on them to survive.
Lake full of pure hot fudge. But in order for us to use the resources around us, we have to transform them first. Because I'm kind of hungry right now, let's use food as an example. In fact, let's make a cake. Think about all the ingredients that you need to put together in order to bake one of these delicious treats. Let's start with some water. The water that comes out of your kitchen faucet most likely came from rivers and lakes around your town. But before the water is safe to drink, it has to be cleaned and stored in places like reservoirs and water towers. Okay, what next? Flour, eggs, sugar, and...
It's important to remember how essential of a resource water is. Now, before we go on any further, I want you guys to think to yourselves, do you think water is a renewable or a non-renewable resource? Now, a renewable resource is something that we have plenty of and is never going to go away. So we can always use it, we can always take it. But a non-renewable resource is something that is in limited supply. When you think of oil, we think of gas, things like that, things that we cannot create again for another billion years. Maybe less, but still a lot of time. So I want you to just think about that while you're watching this video.
These ingredients and a lot of the other foods that we eat have to be cultivated, which means grown on farms, before they can be shipped to grocery stores. In order to do this, farms have to be where crops and livestock can live and grow. All right, now we need to mix these ingredients all together. That means that our electric mixer needs power. The energy we use to power all of our gizmos can come from a lot of different places. Sometimes it comes from materials that we have to dig underground to find, like oil and natural gas. Some houses get their energy from the sun or by wind. Some towns that are close to large dams can even get their energy from moving water. But more on that later. Now, how do we bake this bad boy? The same kinds of energy that powered our mixer also help do things like heat our homes and cook our food. So from start to finish, everything we use to make our cake came from the transformation of the resources around us. The effect the natural world has on our lives is immense, and something as simple as baking a cake shows that we wouldn't be able to live the way we do without the abundance of natural resources on our planet.
Well, I already said it. I mean, everything we use, maybe the pencil that you're collecting notes with, that came from wood that we collected from the earth. The paper you're using came from trees that we use. Wherever you are, if you're inside a house, if you're inside a building, it was built by resources that were taken from the earth. Now, these can be renewable. As I said when we were watching the video, these can be renewable or non-renewable resources. Now, when we think of renewable resources, let's look at trees. Even though we can take down we can look at one tree, we can take it down. Okay, fine, it's gone. Maybe we can't use it again, but we can plant a new tree, which means that is a renewable resource. It is renew. We can use it again. Resources. Now, non-renewable resources are things like oil, fuel, certain metals. These are things that even though there's a lot of, we use them every day. We power cars with them. We power electricity with them. Even though we use these things every day, there's still a limited supply of them. When we drill for oil, we're drilling down and we find layers of oil underneath the Earth's surface, but there's very limited supply. And to make more of it, even though we could, theoretically, it could take millions of years. So, here's one misconception. Not all non-renewable resources are completely limited. So, this means that, like I said before, with oil, you can make more, right? You can technically make more. It was created at one point, and you can do it again, but it comes from the decomposition and the pressure that it takes millions of years. I mean, this is a time span that is not realistic for me. You could grow a tree in the period of a month, in a period of a year, and that makes sense, right? If you need more things from a tree, but with oil, it could take millions of years, and so we don't have that kind of time, and so we call that a non-renewable resource. Even though technically it's not completely limited, it can be made more, but it's non-renewable. And then just like I was talking about with wind before, just because a resource is not always around does not mean that it's not, or that it is non-renewable. So with wind, you may have a day 0 mile per hour wind. No wind, it's not there. Can't use it for your windmill, no energy. But that doesn't mean it's not going to come back, because wind is always going to come back. There's no place on Earth that doesn't have any wind, so it's a renewable resource, right? You're always at some times going to be able to use it. You could create wind. I mean, it is a renewable resource. It can be used again and again. All right, now for our activity. So our activity today is, you guys are going to take a plain sheet of paper just like this. All right, you're going to draw a line down the middle, just like this, okay? And on one side, you're going to write renewable. Like that. And on the other side, you're going to write non-renewable. All right. Right up there. Before I forget, I want you guys to write your name, the date, or your name and date, the top left corner, or top right corner, for when you bring it to class so I can collect it. And so what I want you to do is on this side, for under renewable, I want you to write as many renewable resources as you can think of. I'm talking food. You could oranges, vegetable, anything really. And then non-renewable. What did we talk about earlier? We talked about oil, certain plastics, metals. I want you guys to just think. All right? And so when you're done, I want you to have at least 5 on each side, but I think you can do more. I really do. I think you can do more than that. I think you guys can really come up with some creative things. So when you're done with that, I want you to bring that to class whenever you come back, and we will look over that. And yeah, thank you so much for coming to my science lesson today. I had a great time, guys, and I can't wait to see you in class, and I hope you learned something very valuable.